This podcast is supported by Talkspace.
When my husband came home from his military deployment, readjusting was hard for all of us. Thankfully, I found Talkspace.
Talkspace provides professional support from licensed therapists and psychiatric providers online. Military members, veterans, and their dependents ages 13 and older can get fast access to providers, all from the privacy of their computers or smartphones.
I just answered a few questions online, and Talkspace matched me with a therapist. We meet when it's convenient for me, and I can message her anytime. It was so easy to set up, and they accept TRICARE. Therapy was going so well, my husband and I started seeing a couples therapist through Talkspace too.
Talkspace works with most major insurers, including TRICARE. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com/military. Go to Talkspace.com/military to get started today. That's Talkspace.com/military.
This episode may contain unsettling material or subject matter. Listener discretion is advised.
Delphi, Indiana is a small town about 75 miles north of Indianapolis. The town is surrounded by secluded, scenic nature trails known as the Delphi Historic Trails, and it features miles of train tracks. The population of Delphi consists of approximately 3,000 people, and one of them is quite possibly a killer. On Monday, February 13, 2017, at just around 1:30 p.m., 14-year-old Liberty German and 13-year-old Abigail Williams were dropped off near these trails by Liberty's older sister. The two teenage friends planned to spend some time together hiking the trails. Libby and Abby, as they were known to their families and friends, planned on taking advantage of a credited school snow day, a day that students are given off in the event that there were snow days accounted for that didn't wind up being used. Shortly after 3 p.m., Libby's father, Derek, made his way to the area to pick the pair up, but the girls never showed, and they didn't respond to phone calls or texts. When the two didn't show up, their families organized a search fearing that the girls were hurt or lost, but as darkness fell on the woods, they still hadn't been located, and the families called police to officially report them missing. A large search party was created to search the historic trail area where the girls had been walking, but the search had to be suspended due to darkness, and it resumed the next morning. Some searchers did continue to look into the night, but had no luck. The next morning, on Tuesday, February 14th, the search resumed, and it included canine units and dive teams. The search went on through the day until around noon when searchers discovered 2 bodies. The bodies, although not officially confirmed to be those of Libby and Abby, obviously were. Police wouldn't release much in the way of details, but stated that foul play was suspected. Due to the out-of-the-way and secluded location where the girls' bodies had been found, and the lack of any witnesses, this had all the makings of a case that might go cold quickly. But amazingly, the police released a photo of a person of interest on Wednesday, February 15th. The grainy photo, which was taken from video shot on Libby's phone, appeared to show a man in a blue jacket and jeans walking along the railroad tracks. Police stated that they wanted to talk to this man to see if he could help their investigation, and asked the public to help identify him. In the days following the photo being released, homes were searched, and one man was arrested on charges unrelated to the case. But apparently, the searches and arrest didn't lead to any breaks in the case. Some of the photos from Libby's phone, presumably shot by her, were released by police. In addition to the mysterious man, another haunting photo captures Abby walking along the tracks at 2:07 p.m. the day the girls went missing, her hands in her pocket, seemingly without a care in the world. On February 22nd, police in Delphi held a news conference and officially called the deaths of Libby and Abby homicides. The unidentified man in the photo was now officially a suspect. Most importantly, at the news conference, police released an audio portion of video shot on Libby's phone, hoping that somebody would recognize this man's voice.
Down the hill. Down the hill. Down the hill.
3 simple words. Down the hill. It wasn't much to go on, but police desperately hoped that somebody could identify the man. That didn't happen. That same day, the FBI added the suspect to their most wanted list. On February 24th, police confirmed that they had DNA evidence, and they were going to fast-track it for lab analysis. They didn't elaborate on the evidence, and as far as I know, they've never followed up or addressed the DNA issue again. By early March, this case had captured the attention of the nation. A substantial reward was being offered that led to tips coming in, but none of them led to the right suspect. Facebook groups and YouTube videos began to spring up, and online investigators sleuthed the case. Unfortunately, sometimes spreading inaccurate or incomplete information or rumors along the way. By late March, Libby's and Abby's families had broken their silence and made appearances in the press. Around that same time, police announced that the tips and leads were starting to dwindle, and they were scaling down their investigation, an unfortunate sign that the case might be turning cold. Then, in September of 2017, police announced that they were looking at a registered sex offender with an extensive criminal record. He had been arrested in Colorado after driving with expired Indiana tags. He was found to have an axe and a .22 rifle in his possession. It seemed like a strong lead, and the man looked remarkably similar to the sketch of the suspect in Libby's and Abby's case. But ultimately, police ruled him out. Online sleuths noted the similarities between Libby's and Abby's murders with those of the 2012 murders of two girls in Iowa. 10-year-old Lara Cook and 8-year-old Elizabeth Collins were abducted together as they rode their bikes along a trail near a lake in Evansdale, Iowa. Their bodies were later found about 20 miles away in a wildlife refuge. Iowa police classified their deaths as murders, and as in Libby's and Abby's case, police declined to release the cause of death. Delphi investigators looked at the possibility that the murders might be related, but have apparently ruled out any connection. As of this recording, Libby's and Abby's murders remain unsolved. There are many unanswered questions, and police have never released the cause of death. Despite having more audio and video of the suspect in the murders, investigators have chosen as of now not to release any more than the single photo of the man walking and the down-the-hill audio. Only days ago, police in another infamous Indiana child murder case, the case of April Marie Tinsley, made an arrest in her case. April's 1988 rape and murder was an infamous case, but thanks to DNA advances, police were able to ID and arrest the suspect, 59-year-old John D. Miller. Some people began to question whether Miller could be a suspect in the murders of Libby and Abby. Despite an apparently different physical appearance between Miller and the Delphi suspect, and 100 miles separating Miller's hometown of Gravel, Indiana, and Delphi, police didn't exactly come out and deny that there may be a connection. Instead, they refused to comment on any possible connection. Despite police not immediately dismissing any connections between the two cases, it's unlikely that there is one. But at the very least, seeing April Tinsley's case solved after 30 years is reason for hope that the murders of Libby and Abby will soon be solved as well. Perhaps even using the same sort of DNA database and genealogy that identified the suspect in the Tinsley case. This past spring, Libby's and Abby's families were invited to attend CrimeCon, a true crime convention in Nashville, to discuss the case and spread awareness. They hoped it would generate new tips and leads. And just recently, Libby's older sister Kelsey started her own Twitter account advocating for the case. Her Twitter handle is @LibertyG_sister. With the CrimeCon appearance and new efforts on social media, it's clear that Libby's and Abby's families are making efforts to see the case solved. And in this episode, I was very fortunate to be joined by Libby's grandparents, Mike and Becky. Thank you both for coming on today to talk about Libby's and Abby's case.
Thanks for having us.
It seems like Libby's and Abby's faces have become so familiar to many of us over the past year and a half, almost as if we knew them, and by we I mean the public. But of course we didn't know them, but you as Libby's grandparents knew them better than probably anybody. If you can, just tell us a little bit about Libby and tell us what she was like as a person and who she was.
Libby was a people person and athletic. She was involved in everything. She wanted to try everything. She was a defender. If somebody bullied somebody, she would step right in. She tried to make people happy. Like I said, she was athletic. She was in every sport just about. She had softball in the summer, and then she went directly into soccer. And from soccer, it was volleyball. And then as soon as volleyball was over, it was swimming. And she would have about 2 weeks in between, and softball started again. So she was a very busy person.
So she kept busy. She wasn't in the, anything bad. She wasn't in, a troublemaker. And with that crowd, it sounds like she kept herself busy and going.
Oh, yes. She didn't have time to get into much trouble because, like I said, she was in sports, so she had practice about every night. She was in all high ability classes, so she did, she had a lot of classwork. She was, and the rest of the time, usually it was weekends. It was family. When she wasn't into sports and stuff, it was family and friends.
And speaking of friends, Abby was her best friend?
Yes.
And how often was she over? Was she sort of like the kind of friend that was there all the time and the two were inseparable?
Well, she wasn't here all the time. They were back and forth, but because they were both very busy, and Abby was busy also in a lot of things, but she would stay here quite often. As a matter of fact, she had stayed here the night before. She had gone to Florida with us on vacation before. So, yes, we had her around quite a bit. She would stay at Tara's when Libby would be at Tara's on the weekend. She'd go over there. Tara would have 10 kids at her house. So they just all had a good time.
And you mentioned that she had stayed over, your house. The two of them were together, the night before the murders. And there's been a little bit of confusion as far as the timeline that day of the kids getting dropped off. Who actually dropped them off, and about what time was that they were dropped off to go on their walk?
Granted, the day that this all happened, we weren't looking at our clocks exactly. I know there's been a lot of confusion, and I know that it was reported by the media in the beginning that they were dropped off about 1 o'clock. But what we did is we went back through our phone records to get a lot of our information as close as what we can. We cannot be down to the exact minute. But the girls had slept in, and they got up. Derek was here, and he made pancakes for them. It was more of a brunch type thing because they had stayed up a lot of the night painting and stuff. And then Libby was bored. She always wanted to be doing something, but she had gotten into shopping. She liked to shop. So I told her that if you guys do some work for me, because I have an office here at home, that we'd go shopping or something later. So they were doing some filing for me for my business. And my end of it was Kelsey, her sister, came out about 1 o'clock and said, "Hey, I'm going to go to a friend's house before I go to work," because Kelsey did have a job. So Libby jumped up at that time and said, "Hey, can we go?" And I told her that she had to have a ride because I didn't have time to take off of work to come pick him up, that if she had a ride back home that they could go. They left here right around 1:30. And Kelsey is the one that took them and dropped them off.
And do you know about what time they actually arrived at the area where they got dropped off?
Well, we went out, of course, depending on speed and traffic and everything else. I did go out and drive to see approximately how long, but I know Kelsey said she was talking to her boyfriend when she dropped them off, as she pulled up to drop them off. So we did go back to phone records, and that was at about 1:38 that she was on the phone with her boyfriend. So somewhere right in that time is when she actually pulled over and dropped them off.
So this wasn't a place that was very far away from your house. It was pretty close.
It was 4 or 5 miles maybe.
And so their plan was to stay out there for a while, hang out, walk around, and then meet up later on with somebody that would pick them up?
Yes.
And what time were they supposed to be picked up?
There wasn't a set time. Derek had gone to Frankfurt, was taking some pictures for me, and he was going to pick them up on his way back through. So we don't have an exact time how long it was going to take him to take some pictures. So he was going to call them when he got close for them to come up to meet him. Actually, his first phone call to them that he was coming down the road was at 3:11. He said that he called them again as he pulled in and started to get out of the car, and that was at 3:14.
And just to clarify for our listeners, you mentioned Derek a couple times. Who's Derek to the girls?
Derek is Libby's father.
Okay. So this is a very tight window. This is an hour and a half approximately from the sounds of it to when they were dropped off to when he went back there to try and pick them up?
Yes.
And at what point after that did your family become alarmed that they weren't there, that they weren't responding?
Well, Derek called me about 3:30. He had gotten out and he'd walked around some, and he tried calling her several times and she didn't answer. So he called me about 3:30 and said, "Hey, Libby's not answering her phone. Will you try, maybe I can't get through or something." He didn't know. So I started calling and messaging her. My daughter, Tara, also started calling, and we just weren't getting an answer. And that's not like Libby not to answer her phone. So by that time we thought, wow, maybe her phone went dead or something. We weren't sure because it would pick up and go to voicemail. So about 4 o'clock, I called Mike, my husband, and said, "Hey, something's not right. Libby's not answering her phone. Her and Abby are at the trails. We're going to head on over there and start looking." And he said, "I'll meet you there." So at that point in time, about 4 o'clock, we went there. We weren't officially alarmed. We just know that's not like Libby not to answer her phone. Something wasn't right.
So you're out there searching, and other people are out there searching, and eventually the search was called off for the night. Was that because it was too dark?
Well, we searched, our family, and there were several of us. We called in, and we all walked the paths, walked the trails, and I was on the phone to AT&T as I was out there, our service provider, to see if there was any way I could get them to ping her phone or to track her phone, because we know there's the capability there. But so I spent most of my time as I was walking on the phone, and I tried everything. They couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. I don't know what their policies are. And about 5:20, it was somewhere in there, Mike happened to come up on me as we were walking, and I said, "It's going to be dark pretty soon. We need to call the police." So I think we looked at his phone records too, and it was right at 5:20 when he called the police.
So you're out looking mainly as a family. You're not alarmed to the point where you think you need to call the police, but then it's getting dark, and I assume you're starting to get a little bit nervous at this point.
Yes. So that's when we called in the police.
Okay, and they showed up pretty quickly?
Yeah, at that point in time, there was very little, if any, hesitation on their part. In fact, they were out there at the trails probably within 15, 20 minutes walking from the other direction, and it quickly spread out either across social media or just, obviously it's a smaller community, so the fire department was engaged. There were people searching, hundreds of people all around Delphi, including the Delphi Police, the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Everybody was looking continually that evening. More formal search parties were kind of arranged through the fire department, the volunteer fire department there. They were going out, walking various trails and areas around Delphi. And that went on till probably up close to midnight. And so that's somewhere in there is where you hear the official search was called off, only because it was dark and concern for people's safety. But I will say that there were people who searched all night long. I mean, I was there and they said, "Mike, we're not going to stop." And neither did I. I continued to search well into the waning hours of the morning. And there's people that were out there all night long. And then the official search picked up back at daybreak.
So was this an area that your family had been to before, or Libby and Abby had gone out to before?
It is a trail system that's kind of part of, Delphi has, several miles of trails. And yes, it is a spot that is frequented by many kids and people, and it's a area where a lot of people go to take pictures because there's some scenic area there. I mean, they put a nice bridge going across the new highway that came through to bridge the gap so they could have more trails to the system.
So it's not a place that they had never been before. It was something that not just them, but other people used frequently as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There actually were several people there throughout the day that this all happened.
And had any of them reported seeing the girls?
Oh, the other people?
Yeah, the other people that were out in the area?
Law enforcement really hasn't told us just anything about the witnesses.
Okay. So that night, You don't find anything. The other searchers don't find anything. The search resumes in the morning. Who was it that actually discovered the girls' bodies out there? And about what time was that?
It was one of the organized search parties that, again, the local fire department and along with the sheriff and police, they did a coordinated search effort and put search parties together with either a member of the fire department or a member of law enforcement. So there was ability to have radio contact and, various communications and with some level of authority, within each search party. And, I don't know exactly, I do know who found them, but we don't need to name people at this point, but they found them right about noon time frame is when they called in. They found them.
And how did you all find it? Did they contact you directly, or did somebody come find you and break that news to you?
Well, my wife and I both were in separate search parties. Somebody had called somebody, I believe, in her search party on via cell phone and said, hey, they think they found the girls. And then I happened to be in one of the search parties and heard one of the radios, some radio chatter come across that they think they found them. So I left my area just like my wife did, and we both headed to what they call the trailhead there, basically the area where they were originally dropped off.
They didn't officially tell us then. They did call us all in to the fire department to give us an official that they had found 2 people. But at that point in time, they would not officially name the girls.
But you assumed, I take it that you knew that was them?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not like a big city where you could have multiple things going on, We knew.
And I can't even imagine as a parent, how that would feel as a grandparent to them, how that felt for you. How did you handle it? How did you cope with that initial devastating news?
Well, shock, I guess, would be one of the first things we felt was just, that this isn't happening. This is not real. And to be honest with you, we still feel many times that way today, that this hasn't really happened. She's going to come walking through the door any time now. It's a horrible thing to live through. And so, we literally probably as a family for months just were in shock, and a lot of things become blurry through that whole time because of it. Your lives change 180, 360 degrees at that point. And that's when people say, I can't imagine. No, you can't, because I couldn't either before this. And I still don't know where we're going, what we're doing. It's a total upheaval of everything that was normal to us prior to this happening.
And one of the things I just wanted to ask about, and maybe you know this, maybe it's something that police have chosen not to share. There was some discussion that possibly their bodies weren't there the night before when the search was happening, that they may have been put there, wound up there after the initial search. Do you know about that? Is that true or accurate?
Well, I've had nothing from the police officially telling me that, but just based on facts and information that I've collected, I have no reason to believe that they weren't there and they weren't brought back. And that's just based on the fact that I've talked to a lot of people who were involved in the search or involved in different aspects of this, and but nothing official has been said. Yeah, this is where they were. This is where they've been. They haven't been moved, because obviously until we catch the perpetrator and answer all these questions, you don't know exactly what happened. There's at least 3 people who know what happened, and 2 of them are girls who were murdered.
You mentioned, too, that the police haven't told you everything, and there's certain things they won't talk about. What did they tell you early on when they started talking with you?
In reference to specifically?
Well, the investigation, or what their thoughts were, or, how they were going to handle it right from the beginning?
Yeah, they basically, they even took the time to explain to us the kind of the methodical approach of how they're handling tips and leads and bringing them in and breaking them down, assigning teams to it. Obviously, at that time, there were hundreds of officers involved and investigators, to handle the influx of information that was coming in. And it was impressive of how they truly had a process set up to handle all this, to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. But I mean, I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, that's and long term, in the time since then, do they still keep you updated and in touch with you?
Yeah, because we get a lot of information ourselves. People contact us with whether it be tips or bits of information. For whatever reason, they may not feel comfortable calling it in, or for whatever reason. So, and I'm up front with people and say, I'm going to the police with this. That's our avenue. That's who's going to bring this case to justice for us, is law enforcement. And so I probably am in touch with them every couple of weeks, just keep informed on it. But there's not a lot of information that's been, available to share or out there. They're still working through tips and leads, and they're even circling back around and going through more information or other information that they've already been through, just to make sure that they haven't missed anything. But we're still waiting on that one key piece of information, I guess. And that's what I say. This guy lives down the street from somebody, or he's somebody's neighbor. And if somebody says, that could be, but old Joe or whatever wouldn't do that. Well, once you call that in, let the police work that. They have all the tools and available to them to run somebody's information and check out, see if there even could be a possibility that they would be involved. So that's what I ask of people to do is, the girls went down, fighting, trying to give us information. We've got, that audio clip and the picture and a sketch from somebody who saw the guy leaving that day. Somebody out there says, that looks like the guy that lives down the hall from me, or I work with him, or I see this guy at a diner every week, or every Friday morning, or whatever. Well, call that information in. Be as specific as possible with the police to let them focus in on it and say, okay, Joe, I'll just use a name, Joe, it couldn't be him. He was out of the country or whatever. Let those guys do that job. Don't try to figure it out on our own and discount somebody. Let those guys do it, because they truly have all kinds of information and tools that they can use that a lot of us aren't even aware of.
And one good thing about the case is that it did have a really good media attention early on. It was all over national news. They put a big reward out right away. How did you handle the media part of it? You've got to deal with the shock of what happened to them. But Pastor in America seems camped out in your town. How did you deal with that part of it?
Well, we were very grateful for all the news coverage, because that's what it's going to take is continual efforts keeping this information out there, because he lives down the street from somebody. I don't know where. It's anywhere USA. It could even be outside the USA. I don't know where this guy's at. But before he does this to somebody else's family, somebody needs to recognize and say, that sure looks like that guy. And that's really all, that one little tip away, and we could put this thing to bed and get this guy, again, before he does another heinous crime like what he's done to us.
You mentioned the clip, the audio, the sketch. How many times have you, as a family, looked at that over and over and wondered, do I know that person? Is that somebody the girls knew?
Man, I couldn't tell you how many times, I've got it. It's burned into my brain. And if somebody was to talk like that behind me, I would know it immediately. And yes, we've all racked our brains thinking, do I know this guy? And I'm going to say that obviously we don't. I was hoping that, at some point it would, light bulb would come on and we'd be able to say, this is, he lives over on the other side of the or something, but we just haven't got to that point yet. And that's why we're relying on the public to help us, because somebody surely will recognize that between the picture in the sketch and that audio, somebody ought to be able to tie that down and say, yeah, that's my uncle, or that's my cousin, or my husband, or my brother, or my son, or something.
And police have been really quiet about the case and the evidence they have. They've released, just those couple small items. And that sort of led to a lot of speculation on the internet, people sharing rumors. I assume some of them, I don't know how closely you follow them, I assume some of them may be hurtful towards your family. Are there any rumors or misconceptions or mistakes that you'd like to clear up for anybody out there that's been mentioning some of those kinds of things?
Yeah, one of the rumors I heard was that after we called Mike, he came home to go through some stuff. That's not true. Mike came straight there. And yes, when he first got there, at that point in time, we were still looking. We weren't quite sure. Yes, he has a friend that was in law enforcement, and he did call him and to ask him, look, this is what's going on. What do you suggest? So yes, he did. Is there anything sinister or anything hidden in any of that? No, it's not like we had a handbook of what we were supposed to do. Libby's pretty responsible. You aren't thinking the worst at that point in time. Not here. This has never happened like this around here. We never expected anything. The worst that we expected is maybe they slid down a hill and she lost her phone and they couldn't get up there. That's what we were expecting, to go out and walk the trails and holler for them, and them holler and say, hey, here we are. That is what, when we first went out, we were thinking.
Yeah, and to further qualify that, I work at a place in Lafayette, and I have to badge in twice, and I'm on video camera to get in there. And you got to badge out to leave, and I'm on video camera. So there's been a lot of speculation that it was me. I was out there, and let's face it, that's what gets thrown out there. That's just wasted effort. If people would really focus on it, I mean, the police know exactly where I am. Come on, give the law enforcement some credit. Yes, did they check me out? Yeah, I hope they did. I want them to check everybody out. But again, give the law enforcement some credit there. That I've been fully vetted and checked, but I don't waste time when people put that stuff on. It doesn't mean a thing to me. That's just detractors or people that are uninformed. If they want to focus and help on the case, then spread it out. That provides no value whatsoever to the justice these girls deserve. So I don't waste any time on it.
And every one of us that was around Libby at all, her friends, that came in contact with her quite frequently, we were all swabbed. Every one of us gave DNA. And it wasn't me. I didn't take Mike's DNA. FBI came. They have protocol, procedure, is how they took his DNA. It has been out there that I'm the one that took his DNA, and that's ridiculous.
The scary part of this case, or one of the scary things, there's several scary things, but you mentioned that the two of them were together, and you thought the worst that happened was maybe they slipped and fell and lost their phone. And you hope that two kids being together, they're safer because there's somebody with them. There's less chance of something happening. And the scary part that it still happened with two girls being there. As a parent myself, I just, I think if I send my kids out and they're with somebody else, a friend, it's going to be less chance of something bad happening. And we know just from this case that's not always true. That leads me to my next question. In the neighborhood, right after that time or since then or now, was there a fear of people to let their kids out of the house?
Oh, most certainly. If you drove through town, you didn't see kids out for a while. You just didn't see them. I don't blame them. Our girls were doing what many of the kids were doing that day. They were out enjoying the nice weather. And it came down hard on this community that, we're not the safe little community we thought we were.
And this past May, you traveled to Nashville to attend the True Crime Convention, CrimeCon. You got to talk about the case on stage with Nancy Grace and meet a lot of people. What was that whole experience like for your family?
At first we had some reservations about doing that. To be honest, none of us knew anything about it. And we went to Anna's, and because of a lady on Facebook in our brainstorming group came to me when I was in Indianapolis and told me about CrimeCon, because it was in Indianapolis the year before, and said, listen, I think this is something you need to do. And she was the one that made arrangements with the producer and all of them to say, hey, you need to look at this case. And I did talk to them at that time, but like I said, we had reservations. But after we got there, both families, Anna's and ours both, have decided that was probably one of the best things we had done yet, because it was everybody there would come up to us and say, what can we do to help you? It was quite humbling. It was that there were so many people out there that really wanted to help us catch this killer, because that has become our focus, to catch him. And we know we can't do it alone, and we're doing everything we can to help law enforcement to be able to do their job. And it takes people like the people from CrimeCon to help us. And I believe that it's going to be people like that, and the people that in some of our, I have a brainstorming group, which is nothing but to think outside the box, different ways we can get his picture out there. And it's going to be one of these people, or one of these, I truly believe, will be behind how this guy gets caught, because it was amazing. When we went to crime, we had been on Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz and had talked to Nancy Grace before, and you wouldn't believe how many people at CrimeCon, and you know yourself that these people, that's what they do, or they follow crimes. And we had so many people come up to us and say, I'm sorry, but I've never heard of your case. So that was quite an experience, because we just thought it was out there everywhere, and then we realized, it's not nearly as known as what we thought. And then we said, well, how do you not know? It's been on national TV and everything. And so many people today don't watch TV. It's all podcasts.
And that was something I was surprised about, because I met your family there, and a lot of people were talking about how great it was listening to you and how moved they were. But at the same time, like you just mentioned, I was surprised that there were still people who weren't familiar with the case. And that was surprising to me, because as much as I was aware of it, I didn't think that there were other people that weren't. But it seemed like you all did a really good job handing out material and flyers and different items with the case information on it where people could go. So I think you definitely did a good job getting the word out there. And from my past experience with that kind of thing with CrimeCon, the people there are more than willing to spread the word and get the case out there to an even bigger audience. So I hope that wound up happening for you.
Right. Well, we do too. And our whole thing is he's not going to be caught if they don't know to look for him. So our whole philosophy is awareness. Getting people aware. And the other thing that we've run into, a huge problem we have run into, is just like the Daniel Nations thing. You don't realize how many people we meet today say, oh, wasn't he already caught? Wasn't that killer already caught? Because all of that hoopla that came out about Daniel Nations, and is now you've got people trying to connect April Tinsley with our case. Well, then people think that our killer's caught too, and they don't look. So now we have to raise awareness, because even though the people did know about it, they quit because they thought he was caught. So we have found that we run into that quite often also.
And those are two interesting points you touch on because, one thing I wanted to ask was when there was word about Daniel Nations, who seemed like a pretty reasonable suspect, did you get any kind of hope? Did it feel like that might be the guy to your family?
We have learned it's a roller coaster ride. You have hope one day and then you don't. And then you have hope and then you don't. We have learned through this that no matter what goes on out there in the media, no matter what is said, no matter what, until we get a phone call from law enforcement, it's just hearsay.
And then you bring up April Tinsley's case. It's probably not connected, I would think, but just the fact that a case that's in your state that was 20 years, 30 years old can be solved like that, does that give you hope that this case will be solved, whether it's now or down the road? Does that make you feel like there's more hope?
Oh, absolutely. There's, and that just goes to bolster the fact of the work that law enforcement is doing. I mean, look at this case. It's 30 years old and they're still working it, and they solved it. It's just the relentless pursuit of law enforcement. Like when I said earlier, they're doing things behind the scenes that we may not even be aware of. Well, case in point. That's one right there. And they're working just as hard on our case, as they were that one. And I'm so happy for that family that they got closure of that chapter in their lives, because it sure, I don't know if I can use the word sucks, but our lives sure suck right now, because we can't close that chapter and start truly healing because we don't know. We don't have the guy. The fact of the matter is there's a guy walking around that is responsible for a double murder as a free man in our society somewhere, and he needs to be brought in.
As far as the word closure, an arrest being made and learning the person's name, and that doesn't bring the girls back, but do you think that will give you some kind of closure or some kind of answer that you might be looking for?
It'll provide, the way I kind of look at this is, we got this new book that was thrown upon us when the girls were murdered and our lives changed. And this is just one chapter in there that when this guy gets caught and we get him incarcerated, that we can close that chapter. But it's not over. He'll be learning to live with that. And, we're still struggling to live with the loss. It's every day. It's not something we get to take a break of or clock out and go do something else. It's every day. And that, like wife said, that has become our lives, and our mission is to keep this information out there, spread it the best we can, doing whatever we can physically and possibly do to help help drive in tips or information, or to find that one person that says, yeah, I'm willing to come forward because I do know something.
The only satisfaction we'll have when he's caught is the fact that he won't be able to do it to somebody else. He won't be able to do that to another family. That's the only satisfaction I think that we will get out of him being caught.
And because you worry that not only did he do this to Libby and Abby, but he might have done this to somebody else. I guess that weighs on you as well.
Yes, or that he could do it again. And that's our fear, is that we don't get him caught before he does it again.
Well, and hopefully it is a matter of when he's caught versus if he's caught. And based on all the cases we see being solved recently, I think there's a good good chance that he will be caught, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
We have faith that he will be caught.
If somebody's out there listening, the one thing I definitely want to do is share the Delphi Homicide Investigation tip line number. It's 844-459-5786. If somebody out there knows anything or hears anything or has come across somebody they think could be responsible, please share that tip with police. Is there anything that you both would like to close off with? Anything you'd like to say as we close?
If anybody wants to share the flyer or hear his voice, or if you want to look at the picture again, we do have a website for the girls. It's abiandlibby.org. It's A&D. And that's a website for the girls. It actually has a link that you can go to listen to his voice. It's got a link to the flyers. So if somebody wants to print some out, we've had many people take flyers when they go on vacation and post them wherever. And we are trying to do updates and some information on there too, and it does sort of have the story and stuff about the girls. So if they want to learn more about them, they could go to abiandlibby.org.
And do you frequently get tips there? Is that where a lot of people will give you information that you pass along to police?
No. Most of them just get a hold of us directly. I'm on Facebook. Mike's on Facebook, and he's not on Facebook, but he gets messages when he does check them. But
she usually has to check things for me.
And speaking of which, that was one thing I noticed, that Kelsey has started a campaign on Twitter that seems like something that is helping to generate interest too. So hopefully they can find Kelsey on Twitter, and who of course is Libby's sister, and follow her, because I know she shares a lot of helpful information on there as well.
She actually came up with the idea on her Twitter campaign. We met with several survivors and family members of the Golden State Killer, and one of the ladies there took Kelsey under her wing because they had a lot in common. She too was 17 years old when her sister was killed. So they've become kind of close, and they've kind of guided Kelsey on some of the things that she could do to help. So with some guidance, she has started her own campaign for the younger people, because us older people don't do the Twitter and all of that. So she has started her own campaign to get the word out there to people that don't just do Facebook and TV.
And I think that's a good way to spread information in addition to what you're already doing. And then, the podcast and news media, I think that you're continuing to put the word out there, and we'll certainly spread it on social media too. And, the people that listen to this podcast, hopefully somebody out there will come through with the right information to solve the case soon. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Murder in My Family. If you enjoy this podcast, please take a moment to rate and review it on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast, so that the show can continue to grow and reach new listeners. To learn more about the show or the cases we discuss, please visit themurderinmyfamily.com. You can also find us on Twitter with the handle @murderinmyfam, or search for The Murder in My Family on Facebook. If you'd like to support the show on Patreon, it's always appreciated, and you can do so by visiting patreon.com/themurderinmyfamily. If you prefer, you can also support the show through a PayPal donation by visiting paypal.me/themurderinmyfamily. In each episode, I'll give shout-outs to any new supporters. In this episode, I'd like to thank Maria Fojo, Wendy Sanders, Carl Causey, and Becky Jo Malone. Thanks to all of you that generously support the show through donations. Your support helps the show continue to grow and improve. Until next time, remember, every murder victim means something to somebody.
If you would like to discuss the murder in your family on this podcast, please be sure to visit themurderinmyfamily.com for more information.